Yeah, I don't get a strike, they usually just take it off, but I've done it like mine. Okay, so, first thing is first, anyone not get the assignment from yesterday? We do have an assignment over the break. I know, but I'll also give you extra credit, right? Aren't I nice? Raise your hand, please.
I get a spare copy for someone.
Who?
Finnsburg.
Are you gonna sell this on the black market?
I promise not. No, he didn't.
Extra credit,
He was
the
sick.
highlighted pieces, those will be a quiz on Monday. I'm coming here on the 21st, I'm gonna be here.
I stopped by his house and dropped it off.
And then watch one of the movies, there we go. You wanna do extra credit? You obviously don't have to. And let me think. I think that's our announcement. So let's quick review from the update. We do have to finish the war, and we gotta do one more thing. You know, that is the last day of limbo. It's gonna be February, you're gonna be begging me to limbo. We're still in limbo? No. No. Oh, you shake your head now. We had somebody who just came back to see me, who graduated 6 years ago, just to limbo.
Oh.
She's in graduate school now. Why? To limbo. See, that's the mark he's gonna make up. What other day is it today? The last one of the year. It is Flamingo Friday. We've made it to Flamingo Friday, and cherish this one because you can never get this one back. Drum roll, please. No. Yeah, there we go. Come on, give it up, give it up, give it up. By the way, the glow of the light, it really ties the room together. I mean, it really ties. And one more thing. So, I don't know, this is about 8 years ago. We're talking about Richard Nixon and how I don't like Richard Nixon. So a student of mine gave me this. Had this made of Richard Nixon and Dixieland is Nixie. Dixieland is Nixon. It's actually really funny. I put it up. So a student in my 5th period class painted, it's back there in the corner, painted me as that. Instead of people, it's flamingos. And it's Flamingo Friday. And Flamingo Friday, and it also says, have you noticed? This is art. You know what this is going to be worth someday?
Yeah.
That's cute. Okay. Let's review. At Spotsylvania, where was that horrible fight where they hit that one kind of curved part of the line, raged back and forth? What was it called? Yeah, Bloody Angle. And then, what was the battle? What's it called? Where the Army on the defensive always had the advantage? Interior lines. And so that's one of the things why Army on the defensive have the advantage even when they're outnumbered 2-1, as we'll see in future wars. Next, what was the battle where Grant ordered me to attack, and in 20 minutes, 7,000 Union soldiers went down. Say it again. Yeah, Cold Harbor. And then, where was the place that they crossed the James and laid siege to? Petersburg. And what was the battle? I gave you the name of the battle where they tried to undermine the line. Yeah, the Battle of the Crater. And we have stalemate. Then, what city was Sherman stalemated in front of, even though he was held back by Johnston's army, Confederate army? But again, Atlanta. Yeah, Atlanta. And that's why it looked like the war was going to be over. McClellan, the Democratic nominee, didn't pledge to win the war, but a vote for McClellan was a vote to really do what? End the war. Remember, wars are political. Do you have the will to take it? And the one election, the Republicans made up a party so they could include war Democrats. And what did they call that? Union, we got Lincoln, and what was the Southern Democrat who was his running mate? Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson. Johnson would become infamous for being the first president to be impeached. So, what is it called? In a war, of course. The strategy is, or it would turn out to be, kill so many of the enemy. Let's say it again. Attrition. Attrition. And so, attrition, it just killed so many. Are you willing to take that much sacrifice? And not only the sacrifice of loved ones. Don't forget everything else in the war. The insecurity of it. Prices are going up everywhere. You never know what tomorrow will bring. One bad battle and it could change the price of everything. I mean, it brings so many insecurities. War is just a nightmare beyond comprehension. If people in the North have had enough. Did I tell you about the letter? So did I show you the cartoon? Let me see. Did I show you this one? Did I show you this? And this one, that stalemate, I already mentioned in class, stalemate and McClellan victory. And this is very disingenuous. It's trying to imply McClellan will bring the North, Lincoln, the South, Davis together. When no, a vote for McClellan was to end the war and the United States. Lincoln was so distraught by that August. He was convinced he was going to Lincoln was prone to just horrific depression. So he sat at his desk and he knew he did it in August, because he knew in November, after the election, he wrote a letter to McClellan, give him after McClellan's victory that he assumed was going to happen, where he basically laid out the fact that I will, one, people voted in the war, and I will do whatever it takes to try to win the war before you're inaugurated in March, because we both know it's not to him. He's basically laying out what he thinks will be the end of his presidency, the end of the United States, invisibility. He was terrified. Put that letter away. That's how dark it was. And I don't know what would have came out of this. But McClellan would have won. Something up here would have been the United States. Whatever this would have turned out, it would have been. And I can guarantee this would have to work. Be totally different. Everything we know to be totally different. We can't even imagine. We'd probably be speaking Canadian. That's all I'm looking for. Saying a lot, Hoosier, a hoser, to back bacon. You know what back bacon is? Canadian. There's my Canadian lesson in Canadian for you. Feel pretty good? Toque is a hat. Hat. So it looks like it's over. Who's going to say leave? Who will say leave? And you all know who it is. All of you know who it is. Yeah. No. Huh? No. No. There's only one man. Body's dead. I see Calhoun. You think it's Calhoun? It's not Calhoun. He's dead. So. And it's not Raoul G. Calhoun. As much as we wanted, he's dead too. Save the Union, the end of August 1864, was Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy. The commander of the Confederate forces in front of Atlanta was Joseph E. Johnston. And Johnston did a brilliant job saving his army, buying time, knowing the election is coming. But Davis thought he wasn't aggressive enough, and he fired him after doing a brilliant job and replaced him with the most aggressive general who had lost an arm and use of a leg in battle, John Bell Hood of Texas. Hood who knew only one thing to attack back. We said to Davis, don't do this. Hood took command, and what did Hood do? Well, Hood only knew one thing, only one thing. So Sherman's trying to maneuver to try to figure out a way to get Atlanta. Hood counterattacked. So attacked Sherman 3 different big battles. 3 different battles we kind of lumped together as the Battle of Atlanta, and destroyed his army. He destroyed his army and had no choice. These battles around Atlanta had no choice but to evacuate. Now, Sherman was smart. He might have been able to get him to withdraw, but it would have taken at least 2 months, and by then the election is basically there. He had to withdraw in September, and at the end of September, the impossible happened. Atlanta fell. So everyone got that? Atlanta fell. And when Atlanta fell, or was, you could say, liberated by the United States, everything changed. Overnight, we can win the war. Overnight. And then, at the same time, the last major Confederate harbor fell, Mobile, Alabama. Admiral David Farragut, who suffered from vertigo, he's the same guy who captured New Orleans. You know anything about vertigo? It's an inner ear problem. You have trouble with balance. I mean, it's horrific. People have vertigo. They become nauseous. They can't stand. It's a nightmare. I know someone pretty close to that vertigo, and it was just terrible. And he had trouble standing, lose his balance. It wasn't all the time, and horrible. And it just happens. It's very scary. Well, he didn't want the admiral of the fleet to fall. So as they sailed in, the Confederates had built one of those ironclads called the Tennessee, and and guns and forts along the shore. On his flagship, he didn't want the men to see the admiral collapse with vertigo. He had himself lashed to the riggings of the ship. So he actually hanging over the deck, over the water during the battle. So he would make sure that everyone knew that he was not afraid. So that's the guns of the Tennessee, the Confederate boat. They were 8 feet apart from one time while they were firing each other. It's hanging over. Farragut was something else. By the way, he was 64. And amazing, I think. The Confederates were using underwater mines, and they exploded these using electronic charges, which didn't work all the time. That's why they didn't use it at the crater. They call these underwater mines torpedoes. And they actually blew up a ship like in Charleston Bay and a few others. And they had torpedoes there, and a couple exploded before the Union boats got there. And some of Farragut's fleet, the captains of the ships, cut their engines because they were worried about torpedoes. Farragut was furious. Remember, he's the guy who has no fear, as you could see in that painting. And that's where he would make his famous order, which some of you might have heard. Damn the torpedoes. Full speed ahead. And they sailed out of the torpedoes, reduced the guns of Mobile's defenses, and Mobile fell. Overnight, we could win. Atlanta fell, and then Mobile. It's over. It's amazing how fast things turned out. They didn't take public opinion polls, and we don't know exactly, but overnight, Lincoln could win. And when the election finally did happen, it was a huge Lincoln victory. Now, McClellan still got 1.8 million votes. And of course, the Confederacy was not in the election. You'll notice 2 new states. Nevada just had their big silver boom. It's called the Comstock Lode. And a city near a city called Virginia City, which Montana's Virginia City was named after. And they had just enough people to become maybe a state, and they skipped the territory and made it a state. So Lincoln would get those electoral votes. So that's how Nevada became a state. And you might notice one more state. In 1863, they carved off a section of northwestern Virginia and made West Virginia, so it would be a union state. That's why it's a West Virginia. And this is going to happen a lot. States will be, in the next 50 years, states will be created for political reasons. For example, we're moving on. Has it moved? This is the cartoon from Harper's Magazine, showing Lincoln now even taller in picture. It's one of my favorite pictures of the war. And in it, it's talking about one very important thing, not just the election victory. People thought the army would go for McClellan because they still fondly remember it. They voted overwhelmingly for him. Lincoln was going to win the war, and their lives and their sacrifice were not there. Now, what's our political? And the United States decided we're going to unify this country. Really, there's no way to solve it. No way. But they're not going to quit. They will not quit, and you'll find out something that happens in war. Even when wars at its end, and one side cannot win, they keep fighting. World War II is the best example. And so, it is pretty amazing. What a victory. McClellan was from New Jersey. He would eventually become governor for a while. So, here's Atlanta. Sherman has Atlanta. Hood had to pull out. Hood didn't know what else to do, so he decided to invade Tennessee and cut off Sherman's supply line. So this was a desperate move, and advanced into here. And General Thomas, the Rock of Chickamauga, waited for him at the Battle of Nashville. The Battle of Nashville, December 15th and 16th. So, just the beginning of this week. They attacked Union forces on the 15th, and then Union forces counterattacked on the 16th, and this was a decisive victory for the United States. Hood's army was destroyed. Hood's army was never to be. Of its about 25,000 men, 10,000 of soul were able to make it to North Carolina. It's a bloody, horrible battle, glorious victory for the United States. And Sherman is sitting back here. Sherman is here. As Hood is advancing north. And Hood, Sherman's like the heck with it. He doesn't have men to cause me any trouble. And he sent a letter back to Grant and Lincoln with a proposal. Let me abandon the supply lines. This happened in Vicksburg too. Live off the land, so steal from farmers, and cut a swath of destruction from Atlanta to Savannah, to show the rest of the Confederacy that if you don't quit now, we're coming for you. Or soon it'll just be Sherman is coming for you. And so, he didn't have a name for it yet. But in World War I, it would get a name. And it would be the way that every country fights war to this day. And it's going to be called Total War. Total War. And Total War is basically this. Let me just say, the basic logic. Okay, we just can't win an outright victory in the battlefield. I mean, the United States has taken Atlanta, surrounded Petersburg. Lincoln has been reelected, but they just can't win that one big victory. So they got to make them quit. Remember attrition. Remember attrition. So how do you do it? Well, if they don't have supplies, they can't fight. So let's knock out their industry and transportation. And in the 20th century, that's going to be fuel. If they don't have the fuel, they can't fight. Now, how do you knock out industry and transportation? That's really hard to do, especially in 1864, 1865. That's why I told you about the Merrimack and the Monmouth, the two ironclads that fought in 1862. It showed that industry and technology will become the determinant factor in the war. You can't build your materials, you can't fight. The United States won World War II, or helped win World War II. The combination of Soviet, Russian blood, our factories. Not to diminish the sacrifice of hundreds of thousands of American soldiers. It's a machine of Soviets breaking German back. So, you got to destroy their industry. How do you do it? Yeah. Target civilians, exactly. If the civilians can't go to work, if they're terrified or dead, they can't build the machinery necessary for war. So make everybody a combatant. If everybody suffers, then they'll have to quit. So what Sherman proposed was I'll advance to the South and let the South know as long as you fight, you risk destruction. Now, it's going to take a long time for him to get to every place. Obviously, that's not the whole idea. He doesn't want to destroy every place. He wants to make them quit fighting. He is not a psychotic. But this horrible logic then means that every single person is a target. And soon there'll be a new, World War I, they'll start calling the battlefields fronts, Western Front, Russian Front, etc. And now we have a new front, the home front. The home front. We'll take it to them. Now, Civil War, weapons are limited. By World War II, they can target civilians. Actually, by World War I, the Allies would do a blockade in Germany that would starve hundreds of thousands of people to death. Called the starvation generation. Survived World War I. Which, by the way, they'd be adults just in time to become Nazis. They didn't. And so, by World War II, you have bombers. And you're going to make them quit. Hey, what do we have today? Go to Great Falls and you'll see them. Intercontinental ballistic missiles. And what are they targeted at? They're targeted at people within Russia and China right now. And what are their missiles targeted at? People in the United States, also weapons of the United States, meaning Montana, meaning us. You missed the fun of the Cold War that was slammed in our face, but it is just as dangerous now as it was in the 80s, which actually very much saddens. So, why do this? Not because you're psychotic, to break the people's will to fight. Maybe even revolt against the government or change it. If they revolt against the government, you win the war, don't you? Remember, it's all coming to election. If the US changed their government to McClellan, the South wins. So if you can hasten it by making life even more miserable. But let me tell you one thing. If you're going to do it to your enemy, what is your enemy going to try to do to you? Try to convince you to revolt and make your life miserable. Now, sometimes they can do it, sometimes they can't. The United States had that advantage in World War I and World War II, where it was much more difficult. Obviously, not now. So you're worried now that your people might revolt. You got to watch it now. What if your people revolt against the government and help the enemy win? Are they just angry because food prices are high? Or are they traitors? Are they with the enemy? It becomes really scary. Every state in total war bans free speech. Every state, and it's democracy, they have, including the United States. Until we get to World War I. Remember I told you that liberty and equality can go away? All it takes is a war. Or you believe you're at war. It's actually really scary. And what do you do if you have an enemy within? Hey, maybe put them in camps, right? Total war is the most horrible thing ever created by human. Not saying that. The justification Germany would give for what's called the final solution was genocide. The term would be invented right after World War II. Was because they conquered these areas. They realized that the war's not going to end without anything to large population. It's shocked. To justify it as over war. Heck, in World War II, the United States put people in concentration camps because of who they were. Anyone know who? Who? Yeah, Japanese Americans. Total war. No, Sherman was not thinking, hey, how do I make the worst thing in human history? He's thinking, I got to end the war. But this logic is terrifying. Just wait till we get totalitarian dictators. So, war is all politics. It's all politics. It is trying to end the war. But once you decide that, anything goes. Hey, once you start bombing civilians, it's not that big of a step then from bombing the civilians to maybe using chemical weapons, gas, maybe nerve gas. Or what did the US do after Japan was already completely defeated and looking for a way to end the war? Two atomic bombs, not one, two. But you're right, you're exactly right. Not one, two, and they were utterly and completely defeated. Why? Total war. The logic is scary. So it's attrition on the grand scale. So what is Russia target now in Ukraine? They're trying to make civilians' lives better. They target water facilities, sewage facilities. So if you think about it, electric power, gas, nuclear, so they're like to issue. And in the process of targeting these energy facilities, who lives here? They're killing civilians. Every night they kill civilians. Terrifying. Oh, it's evil. They're sure. So they call this the March to the Sea. And they cut a swath of 60 miles wide of destruction. Basically, they destroyed every government building and railroad, anything that could help this Confederate war effort. But they stole food from every farm. And if farmers resisted, they burnt the farm. In Georgia today, Sherman is despised. Don't go down to Georgia. Don't go down southeast of Atlanta and talk about Sherman. My brother was an economics professor for Georgia Southern in Statesboro. And he was told, you're a Yankee, don't mention Sherman. He was told that right away. And that was, what, 1998. And still, don't mention that. He just retired. So, on the way to the March of the Sea, they meant to just burn down the rail yard so the Confederates couldn't use it after they abandoned Atlanta. They accidentally burnt down Atlanta, which kind of fits in with the whole process, doesn't it? On the way, they burnt down so many homes that only the chimneys were standing. So they called those Sherman's tombstones. And then to make sure they couldn't use the rails again, they would create Sherman's neckties. So they would pry out the rails, put them over the ties, light those on fire so they superheat in the middle, and then bend them around a tree so they're like that. So you can't use them again. Christmas Eve, they arrived in Savannah. Now, I know what you're saying. I still don't understand it. Well, here is a cartoon book from Chester the Crab's History of the United States. I am not making this up. And I know there are teachers who use this, which cracks me up. But it's Chester the Crab, and he goes through all the United States. So here's Chester the Crab making the March to the Sea really fun. Them destroying and living off the land. Hey, they're just chasing things for fun. Leave destruction, and they arrive with Santa. I just think that's pretty funny. I like Chester the Crab. It's kind of humorous. But Sherman sent a note to Lincoln saying, I present to you as my Christmas gift to you, the cities. And then Sherman refit, got supplies, and turned into South Carolina and devastated South Carolina. Devastated. Why do they destroy South Carolina more than Georgia? What began in South Carolina? Who seceded first? Yeah. And then when they got to North Carolina, they quit. He's marching to meet Meade. He's marching to meet Meade. Speaking of that, we're jumping right to here. So many American soldiers had died that the cemeteries were full. Just full. They needed a new national cemetery. The adjutant general who was responsible for this, General Anthony Meigs, Meigs' son died. He was an officer. Young officer died at Petersburg. And Meigs blamed one person for his death. Took that man's plantation, which is right across the Potomac from Washington, D.C. That's his plantation home. And turned it into the most hollow ground in the United States. Arlington National Cemetery. And whose home was Arlington? Anyone know? Good guess, but no. Robert E. Lee. He never made it home. Math class. We're getting a math class in my hallway. They're French. I actually believe in French. Should we all go to France? France, they're people say the French are mean. Oh, maybe they're just mean. Okay, let's walk on. Moving on. That's the most hollow ground. If you get a chance, go. In fact, I think everybody should. It's almost good. So many veterans. John Kennedy, after he was assassinated, his body's right up. And if you stand right there, you look right down. You can look right down the mall, and see the soon to be Lincoln Memorial, Washington Memorial in County. It's amazing place. Go. And I'll talk about the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier that came out in World War I. So Lincoln was inaugurated March 1865. The Confederacy still fighting. And most people, when they look back, remember one of his most famous lines: with malice towards none and charity to all, implying that he would be like, let the South do what they wanted after the war. I mean, a lot of people have said that. He mentioned we need healing after the war. There's got to be some kind of reconciliation. But he never said it. That's why I put the question on. But he made it very clear. The old US is gone. And so even though he didn't say Reconstruction, he never said it. We'll let you back in the Union. We must come together as Americans. But the old United States is gone and a new one will be reconstructed. We will remake the United States. It was a pretty combative speech. Lincoln was good. He could tie in coming together. And things are going to change. Combined with one more thing. Oh, I'll get back to it. But the South still fought. In the Confederacy, we're looking outside. Is that a cookie for me? That's either and how many?
Yeah.
You need to go outside and do something about it.
Look. Ever. It says ever on.
Is it?
Yeah, oh yeah. Would you take a bite of this? I do need a taster. That's very nice. Cookie looks good. All right. But the Confederacy still fight. The South even talked about getting rid of slavery to try to get Britain to the war. That shows you how crazy it got. When it was clear, first off, the war's over. But secondly, that's why you fought the whole thing. And now you want to get rid of it? But then, the Confederate Army was wasting away. At Petersburg, men, it first started with 10, then hundreds, then over 1,000 which is leaving. They're starving to go. They're out of food. They're literally reduced to their main diet was ground up corn cobs that were discarded already to make flour. Then they added sawdust for filling, and they were making their bread out. That shows you how desperate they were. And there's very little nutritional value. And sawdust. Okay, stomach hurts when you're starving, so it fills the stomach. So at least that pain is over. But when it keeps going down your intestinal tract, I think you can imagine what that's going to do. Show you how bad things got to. So, on the Confederates still fighting. On the night of the 2nd and 3rd, their line just closes. Just falls apart. They have to abandon Petersburg and begin. Lee can't quit, so he's fleeing west. And what happens, therefore, if Petersburg falls, Richmond falls too. And once Richmond falls, that night they hastily fled out. Oh, that's a Confederate soldier. They left either men they couldn't take were too sick. He was too sick and died that next morning, or wounded men who couldn't go. Richmond fell. The Confederates tried to burn some of the documents because they were leaving so panicky. That word ship. They accidentally burned Richmond. An ammo dump was hit, and see the shells, they exploded all over. Lincoln, who was following the army, they could sense the war was over. The night of the 3rd, rode in with just 12 troopers, 12 cavalrymen into Richmond. People said, don't go. He didn't care. And he was met by thousands of now free men who are now free because of the Emancipation Proclamation. and they sing songs, most famously, a song that they loved at the war called Kingdom Coming. And that's a painting of them, and it overwhelmed me. It was just, it was all over. This is what I'm doing. And I think very fittingly, those 12 troopers were from a colored regiment. They were black soldiers. He had less than 2 weeks to live. So Lee fled westward. He was going to keep fighting. And after a few days, the Army of the Potomac cut him off right here. Cavalry under George Custer at Appomattox Courthouse. And Lee sent word to surrender. Grant would meet him there and gave him very good terms. Unconditional surrender, no, good terms. He basically said, stack your weapons, your men can go home, and the big thing is he gave him food instead of sleep. The surrender ceremony, April 9th. This is a painting of it. Meade actually couldn't be there, but long story. And to accept the Confederate surrender of their army, Grant chose Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. Remember him, the guy who held Little Round Top in the Battle of Kansas. He was then a major general. He had been wounded in the gut in June, assaulting the Petersburg lines, and was left for dead. He survived, would win the Congressional Medal of Honor. He would become a 4-term mayor, the governor of a thing. He would teach every subject at Bowdoin College, except math, and would die at that moment in the 1920s. Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain would be one of these giant figures of American history during that era. Well, that's Lincoln. That's the last picture ever taken. I really like that picture. You can see how he's aged a lot. Well, if you look, it's hard to see. Right about here is a young actor who was also at John Brown's execution, who actually brought a revolver and was going to shoot Lincoln, but lost his nerve. John was with him. But then after Richmond fell, him and other Confederates, other conspirators, began to organize a conspiracy to knock out the United States government. And we're coming to the assassination. It's John Wilkes Booth. So only 11 days after Lincoln went into Richmond. I mean, think about Lincoln. He was elected. He became president when the war began. Also wasn't over. But the plan was to knock out all the important government officials. He knew Lincoln was going to go to Ford's Theater to watch a play called My American Cousin, which is a comedy. And it was really funny for the time. I've actually seen the play. It's not, comedy doesn't age well. You know, what's funny today won't be funny for a lot of things for like 5 or 6 years. You know, a lot of things I find funny, you probably don't, and vice versa. It's, you know. But Lincoln loved it. Grant was supposed to go with him. Grant really didn't want to go. So he got his wife to fake like she had a head injury. Booth was going to kill both of them, but only Lincoln was. Ford's Theater, if you go there, there's a Lincoln Museum right underneath it. It's really amazing. And they still have plays. The Park Service still puts on plays. When I was there, they were playing My American Cousin. That's not where I saw it. But we couldn't go on the day they were running it. Or you could go up to the mezzanine where he was. It's really pretty. It's really neat. It's small. About the size of our auditorium. It just seemed like a bigger, because I've heard of Ford's Theater, so you got kind of made it big in your mind head. Well, Booth was a well-known actor. And so he just go right in. There was a private who was starting the entry to the mezzanine. I didn't finish. Everybody remember where I was? One little bit to finish. I'll finish it after the quiz on Monday. Everybody, I'm begging you. Have a great Festivus and Christmas week. 2 weeks away from me. I don't know how you guys are going to make it. Try your best, everybody. Have a good Christmas, everybody.